Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Tattooed Relic featuring me, some random guy you've never heard of. And man, oh man, do I have a treat for you today. Yes, kids. For those of you who have watched my massive video output prior to this one, 2 videos. Hopefully you'll notice a change today because for once I'm making a video at a fairly reasonable time of day as opposed to doing it in the middle of the night when I'm extremely tired, my voice is shot, etc. So hopefully this is going to be a lot better. Now, what we're doing today is we're going to be looking at my list of my top 20 favorite actors. Be it movies, television, whatever. And this is gender specific. It is actors. It is all male actors. I'll be putting up a separate video covering my top 20 favorite actresses. When I started putting all of this together, I just found it impossible to combine the two and narrow it down to 20. So I'm doing it in 2 separate videos. That being said, I want to tell you a little bit about how I arrived at my list. But before I do that, I do want to remind you guys this is a brand new channel for me. It's obviously still a learning process. I'm kind of still in the process of setting up my studio for this. Still have to figure out lighting and all of that. But I need your help growing this channel. So please, if you like what you see here, you want to see more content, take a minute, like, subscribe, and by all means share this video and get more eyeballs on it. That's the quickest way for this channel to grow. All of that being said, here's my criteria for the list. This isn't necessarily a best actor list or anything like that. My criteria was pretty simple. I wanted to put together a list of 20 actors who I feel elevate pretty much whatever they're in to the point of at least being watchable and enjoyable, even if whatever the project is may otherwise be stupid. And I'll comment more on that as we go through the list. This list is not genre specific. It is also not period specific. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Just as an aside, I've been a movie lover all my life. And the person that deserves the most credit for that is my grandmother on my mother's side. Because as a little kid, she was a cinephile. She loved movies. And when I was a little kid, every time I visited her, she would show me classic movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever. And I got exposed to a lot of amazing films that way. And I'll always be grateful for that. I think that's a gift. There's an art to cinema, especially older cinema, quite frankly. And I think that's a worthwhile thing to expose your children to. But being as I don't have any kids, I'm not going to get into a parenting lecture here. So let's jump into the list. Coming in at number 20, John Cleese. This guy is a comedic genius. I suspect right now there aren't a lot of people around over the age of, 25, that I need to explain that to. Watch Monty Python's Flying Circus. Watch Fawlty Towers. Fawlty Towers is one of the greatest TV shows in the history of civilization. If you're younger, maybe your first exposure to John was in A Fish Called Wanda. That's one of the funniest movies of all time, in my opinion. He was awesome in that. Another one I would recommend would be Rat Race. That was a great film. I don't want to keep this video too long, so I'm just going to comment briefly on each actor and then I'm going to move on. So, coming in at 19, Jamie Foxx. This guy's brilliant. You know, he started out doing sketch comedy on television. And then we've got films like Ray. He was awesome in that. Law-Abiding Citizen. There's a lot of problems with that movie. Some of it, it gets silly and it also gets predictable. But overall, I enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a good movie, and I think his performance in that movie is great. Bait, his performance in Horrible Bosses was hilarious. And you got Booty Call and all the rest of that. Basically, if you're watching a Jamie Foxx movie, even if the movie is dumb as hell, you're probably at least going to walk away from it thinking, okay, well, that was worth my time. Just on the strength of his performance. And that's the point of this list. Coming in at 18, 18 is Peter Sellers. If Peter Sellers were acting today, he'd be out of a job in less than a year. Because he did a lot of things in his career on the screen that people would absolutely lose their minds about now. Thankfully, that was not the case back in the 60s and 70s, so we have a lot of great movies that we can go back and watch. You have The Party. Peter Sellers is a white British guy. In that movie, he's playing the role of an Indian guy. Needless to say, that would never be accepted today, but the movie is hilarious. You got the Pink Panther movies. Murder by Death, which is making fun of Clue and Agatha Christie mysteries. That is a brilliant movie. You got The Mouse That Roared. What's New, Pussycat? When it comes to Peter Sellers, you pretty much can't go wrong. Alright, moving on. Next one on my list coming in at 17 is Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox is a genius comedically. You know, when I was a little kid, I didn't do a lot of TV watching, actually. I was really active in sports and everything. I didn't spend a lot of time in front of the television. But when I was growing up in the early 80s, there was a sitcom on television called Family Ties that Michael J. Fox was in. And I used to watch that show on occasion. And it was a cheeseball show. You know, it was a primetime show that had all of these melodramatic, heartwarming messages behind them. At least most of the episodes did. And that's the kind of thing that nauseates me. But I could watch, probably even today, I could watch an episode of Family Ties and enjoy it because Michael J. Fox was hilarious in the episode, and he carried the episode. Just his character that he played and the way that he played it was just funny. Same thing applies to in the 90s when he had that sitcom Spin City. Again, I'm not a huge TV watcher, so, you know, there are probably more episodes of Spin City that I haven't seen than there are episodes that I have seen. But the ones that I have seen, I thought were funny as hell because of Michael J. Fox. And then, of course, you've also got Back to the Future and Teen Wolf, and, you know, you got The Hard Way. I don't remember the name of he did a war movie that I thought he was pretty good in. And I only vaguely remember it. I can't even remember if it was a serious movie or if it was sort of a lighthearted comedy type thing. I think it was a serious movie, but I seem to remember enjoying that. And then lastly, The Good Wife. I'm a sucker for legal dramas because my original career intent was to be an attorney. So legal dramas on television, if I'm sitting around watching television and there's a legal drama on, I'm going to watch it. I started watching that show, The Good Wife, which is now off the air. But I started watching that because of Michael J. Fox, because for like 1 or 2 seasons, he was a regular character on that show. And he was hysterical on that show. And his character was an unscrupulous attorney who used his real life battle with Parkinson's disease to manipulate judges and opposing attorneys and everything else. He totally took advantage of that. His character was a complete sleazeball, but it was hilarious the way that he played it. Because he took a real life thing that he's dealing with and he turned that into comedy. And what more can you say? I mean, the guy's a genius. Moving on from there, coming in at 16 is Robert Duvall. The guy's a phenomenal character actor. He's one of these guys. He's a character actor. He's a background actor, a supporting actor. A lot of people, when they talk about great actors, Robert Duvall doesn't come to mind. That's just the nature of the roles that he's played. But I made some notes here. You got Apocalypse Now, The Godfather, Phenomenon, which was a cheesy movie, but Duvall was awesome in that. The Detective with Sinatra, which was a great movie. And then, of course, with Duvall, you've got To Kill a Mockingbird. And he didn't even speak in that movie. And he was awesome. I think he might have even won an Academy Award for that. I think at the very least he was nominated. Anyway, in any of those movies I just named, check them out if you haven't seen them. Moving on from there, number 15, Jack Nicholson. You got The Shining, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Easy Rider, A Few Good Men, Chinatown. The list goes on and on and on. Jack Nicholson is a badass. I don't really care for the guy personally. I certainly don't care for his political beliefs, or not even so much his beliefs, but just his arrogant delusion that which seems to be going around in celebrity circles these days. This idea that he feels like he owes it to society to tell them about what he thinks about politics. But again, this is a video about actors, not about politics. So I'm going to leave that alone. Coming in at 14, we have Joe Pesci. And this is getting way too long, so I'm going to have to start trimming down my commentary here. With Pesci, we've got countless mob films. I mean, the guy's brilliant in gangster movies. My Cousin Vinny, one of the funniest movies of all times. Certainly an iconic movie, whether you like it or not. Raging Bull, Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag was an awesome movie. I will say this. The Lethal Weapon movies, I hated his character. I wanted his character to be killed off. And I guess in a weird way that's a testament to how good of an actor he is, because his character was so annoying. I just wanted that character to die. And my voice is already starting to go out. Number 13, Edward Arnold. This is a guy from classic films. Awesome films. Well, you got The Glass Key. You got Man About Town. Meet John Doe. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, even if they're 20 years old. Command Decision. I mean, the list of brilliant Edward Arnold movies is endless. Guy was a brilliant actor. He was another one that was just kind of a character actor. He was never really your stereotypical leading man. He was just an awesome actor. Whatever role you put him in, he pulled it off. Moving on, number 12, William Powell. William Powell, you got For the Defense, you got the Thin Man movies, which are amazing and hilarious and intriguing. You got My Man Godfrey, Life with Father, I Love You Again, Ziegfeld Follies. That was a great movie. That I can't say enough about William Powell. I could go on for an hour about this guy, but again, I want to keep this video short. The movies I just rattled off, if you haven't seen them, check them out. Coming in at 11, Sidney Poitier. In the Heat of the Night, To Serve with Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Defiant Ones. That guy was just a brilliant actor. And his range, I don't know anybody who says that he wasn't a great actor. But even with that being said, I think his range is underappreciated. In the Heat of the Night, dealt with a lot of racial issues and things like that, and he was great in that, and it was a dramatic role. And then you have something like The Defiant Ones, where he took some of those same issues and kind of turned them on their head and turned it into comedy. And that's an awesome movie. Again, as I say with any of these people, if you're not familiar with the movies that I'm rattling off, I'm doing that for a reason. I'm doing it so that you'll check them out. All right, my next one, number 10, Bruce Willis. My mother hates Bruce Willis for some reason. She always has. I love the guy. I think he's funny as hell. I think he has great screen presence. I think he's very charismatic in front of the camera. And I think he's better than just about any actor at drawing viewers in. My first exposure to him was way back in the, I don't know, I think it was mid 80s, maybe late 80s. I was pretty young. But the TV show Moonlighting, he was hilarious on that. And it was a throwback to like 30s, 40s era crime films with very fast dialogue. It ticked all the boxes. Very fast dialogue. Man and woman having sexual tension. And they're constantly talking over each other. They're constantly arguing with each other. That show was brilliantly made. And Bruce Willis was awesome in it. Then, he left for Hollywood. He did Die Hard. You got 12 Monkeys. You got Blind Date. Pulp Fiction, obviously. Even a lesser-known film, and I think a film that bombed at the box office, Striking Distance. That wasn't a great film, but he was great in it. Lucky Number 11. That's one of my favorite films. I think that film is funny as hell, and it's also intriguing, and there's some very creative plot development in the movie. I love that movie. And Bruce Willis has a very small part in the movie, but it's a good one. You got Last Man Standing. I don't remember a lot about that movie, but I do remember that I liked it because of him. Same thing would apply to Looper. That's a weird-ass movie, but he is really good at it. And then even though I was never a regular viewer of the show, I happened to catch him in at least one episode of Friends. And it was an episode where Ross was hiding in the closet. And Bruce Willis came in and was flexing and singing to himself in his full-length mirror. And Ross came out and started making fun of him for that. He had something over Bruce Willis. I don't remember what it was. But that episode was hilarious. And I wish I knew what it was because I'd like to see it again. But anyway, moving on. Coming in at number 9, Kiefer Sutherland. I used to hate this guy. Because it's, with the exception of The Lost Boys and Stand By Me when he was a kid, there seemed to be a string of movies where he always played some sort of, I don't know, like melodramatic, whiny, just, the kind of guy where you just wanted to slap him in the face and say, dude, just grow up, be a man. There was even some of that in Young Guns, if I remember correctly. But he has had a lot of dark turns in films, and especially later in his career. Flatliners, that's kind of in the middle of what I'm saying. But I thought Flatliners was cool. I think his performance in that was good. A Few Good Men, I think he was awesome in that, and I never would have expected that, because when that came out, I still had a view of him as like, this guy's a weakling. But he came across as a genuinely intimidating Marine. And I never would have expected that. You got The Vanishing. The Vanishing was really good. The Killing Time, same thing. You got Phone Booth. Phone Booth was an incredible performance by Sutherland. And he was never even on screen. Or I think he was technically for a few seconds right at the end of the movie. But he was just a voice. But he was menacing in that movie. And then, of course, we have 24. And in 24, he was a legitimate, convincing badass. Somebody that you absolutely did not want to mess with. And so I've come around on him. I respect him. I've always thought he was a good actor. I just, back in the day, I didn't like his characters. But he's done a lot of things over the last 20, 25 years that I really like. Moving on from there. Coming in at 8, we got Tom Cruise. I think most people would agree that this guy, to put it politely, probably has a screw loose. But the guy's a brilliant actor. First time I remember seeing him was in the movie Taps. I saw that when I was a little kid. It's a movie from, I don't know, like 84, 85, something like that. He played a cadet at a military school that basically goes nuts. And he turns into a homicidal maniac. I'm not going to go into any more of that, but if you haven't seen the movie, check it out. It's worth a watch. And there are a ton of other great actors in that movie also. Of course, with Tom Cruise, you got Top Gun. You got the Mission Impossible movies, Jerry Maguire, Jack Reacher. I thought Jack Reacher was awesome, and I didn't expect to like it, but I did. Another one that I thought was really good was Valkyrie, the historical pick about the assassination attempt against Hitler. I thought Tom Cruise was phenomenal in that movie. And, of course, you've also got your comedies like Cocktail and Risky Business and all that stuff. The guy, he shows up in a movie, I'm going to watch it. He's got his duds in there, Eyes Wide Shut. To this day, I haven't seen that all the way to the end because I thought it was horrible. Interview with a Vampire. Never could get into that. But 9 times out of 10, if Tom Cruise is in a movie and I watch it, I'm probably going to walk away saying, yeah, well, I enjoyed it. Because of him. And again, that's the point of this list. Coming in at 7, we got Sam Jackson. What can I say? Pulp Fiction, Die Hard, Black Snake Moan, Jackie Brown, A Time to Kill. 187, which is a lesser known movie, but definitely worth watching. 187 is about a teacher at an inner city school. If I remember correctly, it's set in L.A. He basically descends into madness because he's just fed up with all the crap that he has to put up with delinquent, just having criminals as high school students and all that kind of stuff. It's a fascinating movie. You also got Shaft, Unthinkable, Lakeview Terrace. Lakeview Terrace is an awesome movie. That's another one. Similar to 187. It's just about a guy just going nuts and snapping. And then, of course, I think my first exposure to Sam Jackson was probably Do the Right Thing, where he was just a DJ in that Spike Lee movie. And you would see his mouth on camera or whatever, but he was basically just a voiceover guy and a narrator throughout the movie. But he's just... Sam Jackson's awesome. You put a movie in front of me with Sam Jackson in it, I'm going to watch it. Number 6, Jimmy Stewart. I mean, what do you say? You got It's a Wonderful Life. You got The Philadelphia Story. You got Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, of course. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Call Northside 777, which is a lesser known movie, but it is definitely a good movie. You got Rear Window, Vertigo, Anatomy of a Murder. I seriously can't think of a single film that starred Jimmy Stewart that I watched and walked away from it saying, man, that movie sucked. I mean, the guy's got dozens and dozens of films on his resume. And I honestly cannot think of a single one that I have ever seen where I came out of it disappointed. Same thing can be said of the next guy coming in at number 5, Denzel Washington. I think as far as I can remember, my first exposure to him was in the movie Ricochet. That was a very good movie. He was very good in it. Training Day, I think, is awesome. I love seeing him playing dark characters because he's so charismatic and I don't know, he's played dark characters in his career, but I don't know, somehow anytime I see him do that, it strikes me as refreshing because it's almost like he's going against type, but it's not so much that he's going against type, but he's going against just the natural charisma that he has on camera. You see him on camera and you think, oh, this is a cool guy. He's somebody that would be fun to hang out with. So it's really cool. To see him go against that and play the opposite of that. And there was a little bit of that even in Ricochet. You know, in the sequence where he was drugged and he went into a really dark place and didn't really know what was going on. And, you know, the dude is just phenomenal. And you got, remember the Titans, you got John Q. The remake of The Taking of Pelham 123. He was awesome in that. Man on Fire. Roman J. Israel, Esquire. That's an awesome movie. It's disturbing, and there are certainly elements of it that I don't agree with and I don't support. But it is damn well worth a watch. That's a very good movie. That was one that I walked away from going, man, Denzel was great in that, but I really don't know what to think about this movie because I have mixed feelings about it. It's worth a watch. Watch it with a group of people who love movies, and you're in for a long night of some interesting discussion. Number 4, we got Brad Pitt. I think the first time I ever saw Brad Pitt was in True Romance, where he played the roommate of Dick, who is played by Michael Rappaport. Brad Pitt's character was Floyd, and he was a total stoner and a burnout, and they played that to great effect. This was also the first time I ever saw James Gandolfini in anything. And in that film, James Gandolfini plays a mob hitman. He walks in on Floyd, looking for somebody because he's looking to kill him. And Floyd is sitting there smoking weed out of a Sous Bee plastic honey bottle that looks like a little bear. He has converted that into a bong, and he's smoking weed out of that. And he gets into a conversation about whether or not Gandolfini wants to smoke weed with him. That performance was brilliant. And, going on from there, you got California. That was another one of Brad Pitt's early movies. He was awesome in that movie. If you haven't seen that, it's hard to find. Last time I checked, it was on YouTube. And you can watch it for free, but the audio is terrible. But that's a good enough movie that if you're motivated enough to watch it, buy the damn thing on DVD. Just look it up and order it on DVD. Brad Pitt plays a serial killer in that movie. And it is awesome. Going on from there, you got 12 Monkeys. You got, of course, Seven. Even the more dramatic movies like A River Runs Through It, Legends of the Fall. Those are both great movies. Mr. and Mrs. Smith was a great movie. Brad Pitt is another one that I can't think of a movie that I've seen of his that I didn't like. Fury was awesome. Fury was absolutely incredible. So was Inglourious Bastards. I don't know. Don't even take my recommendations. Just look up his filmography and pick one at random and watch it. Number 3, Clint Eastwood. Same thing. You got the spaghetti westerns. You got the outlaw Josie Wales. Dirty Harry. Play Misty for Me. His comedic stuff like the Every Which Way But Loose series. Then you got him in things like Heartbreak Ridge, where he's so convincing as just this badass Marine gunny. You got In the Line of Fire. Of course, Escape from Alcatraz. One of his most iconic movies. I almost forgot about that one because I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And then, of course, you have his return to westerns with The Unforgiven, which he also directed. That guy is a badass. He can do no wrong. Quickly, number 2, you got Cary Grant. This guy is amazing. Some of my favorite movies of all time star Cary Grant. Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, Suspicion, Arsenic and Old Lace. Of course, North by Northwest, The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. You can't go wrong with a Cary Grant film. That's all I'm going to say. Last on my list, coming in at number 1, is going to be Gable. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, I guess I'm a little bit biased because it just so happens that my father, at least in his younger years, he looked a lot like Clark Gable. So when I was a little kid watching movies with my grandmother and I saw old Clark Gable films from the 30s or whatever, it was almost like watching my dad on screen. So that just naturally made me gravitate to Gable. And I've been a huge fan of Clark Gable all my life because of that reason. He also happens to be a brilliant actor. Two of my favorite films of all time are Manhattan Melodrama and It Happened One Night. And I've seen both of those movies countless times, but I can sit down and watch them again right now and get just as much enjoyment out of them as if I had never seen them before. They're that good. You've also got him in Mutiny on the Bounty. The Misfits, later in his career. You got Run Silent, Run Deep, Command Decision, Magombo. I'll go ahead and mention it because people will probably be wondering why I didn't. But there's Gone with the Wind. I don't happen to be a fan of that movie. I'm a northerner, so the subject matter doesn't really mean anything to me. Why do I want to watch a 4-hour movie glorifying the South? And I just think that the movie is boring. So that's why I didn't bring that up. So that about wraps it up. In closing, I'll just say some of you might be wondering about some notable actors that didn't make my list. And I'll comment on a couple of those. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. They didn't make my list for two reasons. Number one, I think that both of them sorry, somebody keeps calling me. I think both of them have a lot of garbage on their resumes, especially later in their careers over the last, honestly, the last 20 or 30 years. Yes, they're great actors, but both of them have taken on roles where they have pretty much embarrassed themselves by even showing up, as far as I'm concerned. The other thing is I think they've also both, as actors, gotten lazy. And they're living off of their name more than anything else. And that kind of plays into my first point. But I think especially over the last 20 years, basically both of them play the same damn character in every movie. The only thing that changes are the words coming out of their mouths. But they're basically the same character in every movie. I haven't seen Al Pacino do anything different than Colonel Frank Slade from Scent of a Woman since Scent of a Woman. He's basically the same damn character in every single movie after that. And I don't know, that's disappointing. If you look at their movies from the 70s, both of them displayed phenomenal range and phenomenal ability. Now they just kind of show up and read their lines. And De Niro squints a lot. and grins a lot or frowns a lot. Get out of here with that. Another one that didn't make my list that probably should have, honestly, he just didn't come to mind when I was putting together the list because I was doing it off the top of my head, is Bogart. I can't think of a Bogart film that I've seen that I didn't like. But he didn't make the list. I overlooked him. It is what it is. Another one that didn't make my list that I think is a phenomenal actor, and I enjoy him, is Tom Hanks. And the reason Tom Hanks didn't make my list is because I hate Forrest Gump. I hate that movie with a passion. So, that eliminated Tom Hanks from my top 20. Because I'm not celebrating anybody that had anything to do with that movie. That movie is a piece of trash, in my opinion. And that'll be about it. I guess that'll do it. If you guys have any thoughts on this, if you have a different list, by all means, share your thoughts in the comments below, and we can talk about it. And once again, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, do me a favor and like, subscribe, and share. I'm counting on you to help me grow this channel. All right? That's it. Peace.